Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm Nina from Causal. I lead strategy and enablement here, and this is Unfiltered, where we talk about all things media. So today I'm joined by Ange from Proximic ComScore. So Ange brings 15 years of experience in custom marketing research, online advertising, and sales across a diverse array of industries to her role as global commercial lead at Proximic by ComScore. She applies her expertise in the evolving advertising ecosystem, including programmatic activation and fragmentation of media consumption, to help clients answer critical business questions by leveraging insights from ComScore's cross-platform data assets. She's based in New York with her husband, two daughters, and my favorite part, her cat Bob. And then we have Jen here, who is our SVP of operations at Causal and Russell Westbrook Digital. She has been in the advertising space for 20 plus years, scary, as she said, and leading operational account management and strategy across all teams and verticals that we have here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for kicking us off, Nina, and thanks again, Ange, for joining us today. It was really great seeing you at CES a few weeks ago. Thanks, of course, always for your hospitality. I think for me, CES has always been a really great way to kick off the year and set the tone for the year and see what themes are going to like crop up throughout the year that really you see through all the conferences and through clients that you talk to that year. And after I came back, I really started thinking about things that popped up for me across meetings. I met with other partners and clients, was able to take in some panels and content, and a few of them really resonated with me as I think they're all really interconnected. Privacy, of course, is a huge topic that we continue to talk about as an industry alongside AI. And I think that ultimately outcomes as well, tied to measurement quality and decision confidence, are what at the end of the day brands care about. Ultimately, with that privacy and AI is, I think all three of those things, outcomes, privacy, and AI, are kind of like what everyone's talking about, and everyone needs to be doing everything in that regard. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic. Ange, how do you think digital advertising companies and marketers in the ad tech space should position themselves when it comes to AI and privacy, specifically when speaking to privacy as like an asset in your offering? Like, what should one implement to ensure that they're privacy first and not confuse or cause concern with clients?
Yeah. And yeah, I think you nailed it. We heard the same things at CES, and we even came back and, even in the quick meetings right afterwards, our team's like, what were you hearing? And we're like, a lot of AI, a lot of privacy. And they're like, you always say that. And I'm like, no, but there's new conversation behind it. And we were talking a lot about it because to that point, AI and privacy, they're not necessarily new topics in our industry. I know, especially from my perspective, being part of a data company within a measurement company, privacy is always at the forefront for us. And we've been talking, let's call it probably 10 plus years now, really with GDPR starting the privacy trend being much more something we brought up. On the AI front, even though I know it's all anyone can talk about recently, the programmatic space has been leveraging machine learning, bidding algorithms, and models, for years. But if we want to talk about how to position it today, I really think we need to stop treating AI and privacy as separate conversations. And the reason I say that is because if we think about it, AI done right is really enabling privacy first advertising at the end of the day. It's finding patterns, predicting outcomes, but without needing to identify individuals.
Exactly.
And that's what we keep hearing about. There's still, you mentioned outcomes, there's a lot of this like, but I got to know the person. And what I always want to clarify with folks is the biggest thing to keep in mind with both AI and privacy at the forefront is the goal isn't to bypass regulations or find new ways to identify people. It's move beyond that model entirely because AI can allow marketers to understand the patterns, content, intent at scale, and without relying on the personal data. So when I think about it, even from a consumer standpoint, it's like when ads are well curated, contextually relevant, they don't feel intrusive anymore. They actually feel useful. And
Much better experience for the person seeing the ad if it's relevant.
Exactly.
We've always said that, even when like retargeting first came out or behavioral targeting first came out, like with the advent of programmatic, right? Like at least you're
Exactly.
seeing an ad that's relevant and you're not seeing like Viagra if you're a 30-year-old woman. Uh,
Right. Which
so
obviously I am a 30-year-old woman. So that is why I don't need to see that ad.
exactly. No, I mean that all totally makes sense to me. And like, what do you think? Um, I mean, I think there's still a confusion though. I mean, I don't know if you see it, but definitely see it in like some of the clients we talk to, maybe the smaller brands that are really just like starting to dabble in like AI, and they're very maybe focused on the privacy aspect, but they feel like they're going to lose something if they go all in, like, with privacy, or they think that maybe pertaining to their own first party data usage or leveraging third party data, like they can't do that anymore if they want to be fully privacy safe. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is too is a lot of times there's because they're buzzwords in our industry that you go from being able to say, I'm seeking out something that leverages AI, or I want to make sure that we're leveraging the privacy here. And now it is every piece of collateral. You have plenty of people who are like, all right, we got to keep up with the buzzwords. So my job is to make sure every piece of collateral mentions AI or privacy or another buzzword. So it's just folks are inundated and can't really, sort through the clutter of it all or even figure out where to start diving in. I think from our perspective, when I look at this, it's like, again, we always joke. I think we might have even said this at CES when my boss is around. She's like, I'm not a privacy lawyer, but I feel like I play one on TV given the number of conversations we have with her, making sure all of our solutions are lined up hand in hand with our full legal and privacy team. And there's certain things that I always tell folks you want to keep in mind in the privacy space. I think, step one, everything's going to say privacy. So what's actually making sure you're compliant here? There's a couple guardrails and like basic ones I'm thinking of is make sure that people have very clear data sourcing, consent aware systems. But again, to this last point, you're saying this is where it's interesting because we want to say, make sure people have approaches that work, whether or not the identity signals are present. And that's great because it leans in from a privacy perspective. It ties to the outcomes. I do know, though, there's still people, though, that in their mind, like we said, they are tying identity and outcomes
Yeah.
together. But the biggest thing I always come back to is, and we've heard it for years, but AI's really heightened that old adage of garbage in, garbage out. The quality of the data inputs and the opt in consented nature is critical here. So, done right, AI isn't a workaround. It's really how that relevance and respect for consumers can really coexist. But if you're just looking for someone who checks the box, then I don't know what the AI is going to give to you at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too with AI specifically, like there's so many different like use cases for it in our industry. There's like the great, audience models that are being driven by AI. There's optimizations of campaigns by AI. You can troubleshoot your campaign and figure out what's wrong with it using AI. Like you can plan a campaign using AI. So I think that too is something that we've spent a lot of time at Causal and RW Digital speaking to our clients about ways that we're using it and like how they're different use cases, right? Like there's what helps us internally like optimize a campaign, but then what's actually being powered to kind of optimize something like without our hands even touching it on the back end, that's powered by AI. And I think that's the piece that we want to make sure is like the privacy safe piece. And we have a lot of conversations with our clients too, and they're like, well, we want to know exactly which person that filled out this form and became a client on our side, saw the ad, like exactly their name and address. I'm like, well, that's probably not going to happen.
Right.
But I can tell you is your business is growing since we've been in market with you, or we can directionally say this might be the number that we're sending, but we can't tell you exactly who. And using kind of AI, powered optimization and audiences on those campaigns has really helped drive like some pretty good outcomes for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I always think of it of like, look, we live in a data world. We always think, the more data, the better. Um, But I always laugh and I think about it like back in the day. Like, I mean, it still exists, but let's think about it from a brick and mortar perspective. Like, yes, there's plenty of like frequent shopper cards and programs and it gets people data. But if someone walks in the store and has a sweater in their hand, their intent is what you know, and you want to make sure they convert and it's moving the needle. At the end of the day, would we love to be able to tie it back to everything? Sure. But we don't need to equate the identity with the effectiveness. So we don't need to know who someone is to understand their intent or even the context. And I think, you know, similar to what you were saying, and I was mentioning, we have to move from this more data to smarter data. So from our perspective, being part of ComScore, like we always say, like the bar is set differently for us. We are part of a measurement company. We need like, before the Proximic side even touches the data, it's gone through all of the data hygiene, cleansing, methodology, and layer on the full privacy team for a company that maintains a person level panel. So we're always privacy first there. I know it's not always the case. But when we think about it, AI driven approaches are really built to perform even when those signals are incomplete. So it can help us a lot of the ways. It makes them more resilient in the privacy first world. And I really think that when clients see that relevance and performance are going to hold up even without identity, privacy stops feeling like a limitation and really starts feeling like we brought all the AI and privacy together for progress at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's something that, you know, where Causal sits in the space, we work with great clients or partners like ComScore and you know, solid inventory partners. We're really focused on making sure everything is like high quality and driving like super, you know, strong performance. But alongside that, like the privacy thing just continues to be something that like comes up. We've seen, especially with like the holding codes that we work with, we've been seeing a lot more like data privacy questionnaires and like really diving into like the nuances of everything that we're doing on our side. A lot of which, you know, we kind of pass on to the partners that we work with, just where, you know, where we sit in the space. But it is something that I think there's just so much more scrutiny on. And I also feel that like at the CMO level, like they're more leaned in than they've ever been before that I've seen, just from like the conferences I've been to recently on the outcomes and the performance. And they just want, I mean, what is their job as a CMO? It's to grow the business, right? Like that is their job. So that trickles down, hopefully, to their brand teams, to the agencies representing these teams, that they care about growing the business, even if, you know, some of these like fluffy KPIs that we might be optimizing to try to just show that something is happening, like they don't really care about that, right? Like they care about the business. So that's where we're trying to kind of continue to educate our clients on, is you can kind of have it all, is
Yeah.
how I feel, if it's done right. I mean, there's probably companies in the space that talk about AI that who knows what they're doing, and it's a little bit smoke and mirrors, I think. But you kind of have to just like do your due diligence.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with it. So you mentioned kind of the privacy questionnaires, and it always, they make me laugh because I think I'm always very open, like, hey, we're doing privacy questionnaires all the time. If you have one, send it over. We have a full team. Depending on how deep your team wants to do, we can give you questions. We can connect you with our privacy team. And that was normal to me. I've heard from clients that are like, they start asking us, like, is it okay? Would you be willing to, like, they start, I'm like, of course. So I'm getting the vibe that not everyone is willing. So to our earlier points, like if you're willing to fill one of those out and answer it honestly, then you're probably, that's going to help you filter through some of the clutter in the space. And I think you're totally right. You know, when we think about the CMOs and when everything I'm thinking here about like KPIs, business outcomes, let's think about what the business actually cares about at the end of the day. So growth, efficiency, long-term value, work backwards from there. It should always be the case, but I mean, I also remember early digital days when all anyone could talk about was click-through rate, which great, we could measure it, but do not ask me how that's going to tie to lifetime value of any consumer within there. So media metrics do matter. I'm not saying they don't, but only when they're tied to those outcomes. So even if it's modeled rather than deterministic, they're going to matter. Use the AI to understand context, content, consumer intent. Then we're going to be able to create campaigns that perform because we're now aligning to how people actually engage, not just because someone followed them around the internet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we work with a lot in the pharma space, and I think a really good example there is like, and gladly, the teams that we work with on those don't care about click-through rate. They're just like, don't care about it. I'm
Mhm.
like, that's good because the audience that you want to get in front of that's relevant, that's going to drive the performance that they might want to see that's being measured by like a third-party measurement company for, the pharma space for script, something like script lift for audience quality. Like that will show you if you're getting in front of the right audience, not did they click on the ad. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like not focus on that and tell my team, like, don't worry if the click-through rate's low, like look at this reporting. And then when you ultimately it works out and it performs well, you know that there isn't that correlation between clicks and performance. And that's what I've always said too in the space is people that generally click on stuff a lot are not the ones that are actually converting, and
Right.
vice versa. The ones that are
Yep.
converting are probably not the people that are clicking on ads all day long. So that's what
1000%.
yeah, and I think too, I mean, of course, like transparency goes along with this, like from a, an execution standpoint in our industry, right? Like with the different clients that we're working with, they want to see transparency, like in these audiences. Like, do you ever get questions from brands or ad agencies that you work with on like what goes into your audiences, especially since they're idealists and AI driven?
Yes. I mean, all the time. And it's as much as I say my boss's side job is to play a privacy lawyer on TV, I'm working with our RFI team constantly. And I think it's really interesting because, on one hand, it's very easy for us because our panels are in house. They're things that we have sourced. We can share anything people want to know about them. They're consented, they're opt in behind that. Um, we've always talked about the machine learning that we use within our models for within there because we are a panel company and there's privacy compliance. Anything we're putting out the door will be modeled. Um, but I will say, to your point, there's more questions now because people are hearing so much constantly. And I think from there, this is where it's like, I say there's kind of two sides to this. And there's a client education piece behind it all as well. And again, being forthcoming, making sure people can know what's in there. I really think about it as AI is great. It brings us efficiencies. The systems are talking to each other. But at the end of the day, us and our clients, we all need to be talking to each other. It's like we said, quality data in, we hang our hat on that. Ask us any questions about it. We'll continue to deep dive from there. But making sure it does, again, like you can have amazing data in, but again, align to the KPIs, make sure we're all driving to the same piece within there. Um, Share the learnings, align on strategy, know what's working, brainstorm together, and we're all moving in the same direction.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like we test a lot of data and have a lot of different data partnerships that we work with that we kind of match to our profiles on our side at Causal. And like the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. Like if you see the performance and the outcomes that you want to see, you'll know, right? Like you can do all the things right. And if it doesn't perform at the end of the day too, I think that's the piece. Like we want to make sure that it's privacy safe and there's the quality there, but then ultimately it has to be good data, as you said. Like it has to perform,
Right.
or marketers and brands will go elsewhere. So it's just finding what works, right? And I think a big piece of that too is like clients leaning into their own first party data has been a huge topic over the past, I don't know, forever it seems like, but especially in recent years with, the whole concern about, certainly when cookies were going to go away, like it was all like everybody has to lean into their first party data and that's the only thing you're going to have to do with. So make sure you're making good use of it, which I still think because of all those conversations a couple of years ago, marketers are really like leaned in with that strategy. So I think, and I don't know if you have any like thoughts on like how clients could like continue to better use that their own first party data, but like in that kind of privacy
Yeah.
central.
And I think from that perspective, it's really similar to a lot of what we talked about. I know from our perspective, one of the things we've always said is like, we have our own data, we have a methodology, we have partner data, but it's really any data set we can match back to our panel at the end of the day. So we think about things as really a halo effect. So we're like, great, use your first party data, go out, target them. We'll work with partners to say, hey, we can run this through our methodology to help you amplify that. Find people that are behaviorally very similar to your existing first party data. And again, I feel like so much of what we discussed today, we keep being like, it's not an either or. It's like not like for years we have had the conversation, like you said, it's like, okay, cookies. Okay, wait, now we got some mobile IDs. All right, now hold on, we're moving away from all of them. It's first party data only. And it's like, it's not an only.
Yes.
And even like we was like, we thought cookies were going away, they're here to stay. But at the end of the day, I mean, with privacy and different browsers that are out there, we need to be mixing and matching across all of these strategies just to make sure you have the campaigns at scale. And I think AI can even help us like sort through some of the clutter too. You mentioned even with some like the third party data sources that are out there, because for years it was a manual process with someone trying to make a decision based on what information was handed to them and what they believed to be true. But with all of this, we're going to be much quicker starting to see, like you said, look at the performance, look at the outcomes of it, and the data is going to feed right back in to be able to say, is this strategy working? Yes or no, and move on to the next as you outlined, but at a much quicker pace than we did before. It doesn't have to be necessarily wait till the end of the campaign, see how it performed, change process for next campaign.
Yeah, I mean, you can continually optimize. And you mentioned, I think, a really good point. You had a really good point on scale, right? Like if you only use first party data, you're gonna hit a wall with scale, firstly, and secondly, with just growing your business. Because if you're only, I mean, you can maybe use use it in creative ways for loyalty and things like that. But if you're only using that data set, I think you're not going to grow your business at the end of the day. Like you need to be reaching out. And using other data sources to continue to grow that and find new prospects, like-minded, people to whoever's in their different loyalty groups. But I think that's a really good point about doing it all together.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, with I said earlier, like that good data in, make sure it's not garbage. Like people who are buying your products today, that is great data. Let's help you amplify that.
Exactly.
All right, we have about 4 minutes left. So I don't know if there's maybe one key takeaway that you both would like to share with anyone who then watches this going into 2026 based on these topics.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say that the a really big takeaway that I can see is just like test and try it all. Like, don't be afraid to privacy, like work with partners and vet them, right? Like you need to vet them and make sure that they are what they say they are. I think that's really important. Making sure if they say they're privacy safe, they're using AI, they can drive outcomes, like test them, look into it, check into their methodologies, like make sure that they are, what they're doing what they say they're doing, and then test them and be open to trying new things. I think with that, lens on as well, but making sure that, at the end of the day, ultimately, the partners that you work with want what you want, and you both want to be successful mutually.
Yeah. Okay, you kind of stole mine, so now I'm like, oh, hold on. Let me say I'll build upon that a little bit then, because I think we're aligned on that one. I think similar to the testing, it's like test rigorously, keep continuously refining what good looks like. And like we talked about, make sure it's tied back to those outcomes, because I think the ecosystem's constantly evolving. Things that we could have tested 3 years ago and been like, it works. We need to make sure that there's partners out there that are also evolving the solutions. And then having those tied back to those overall business outcomes, not just, like we talked about, we can have a campaign look good on an individual metric. Is that metric tying back to what the CMOs are asking for at the end of the day? So really the performance becomes durable, not just measurable.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And then we'll see everyone else here again on our next episode.